The topic of my research proposal is the focus on increased school readiness skills in pre-K and its effects on behavior. In the 1700s, the father of kindergarten, Friedrich Froebel, conceived kindergarten on the theory of active learning and play. Recent research on kindergarten reports that kindergartners spend more time with workbooks and worksheets and less time playing, with the majority of kindergarten teachers expecting their students to know how to read by the end of the year. Given the increased pressures of accountability measures, particularly with the federal No Child Left Behind Act and state mandates, there's been an academic push down to the lower grades to prepare for such high-stake testing. Leading professional organizations such as the NAEYC advocate for the research and connection between the necessity of play and high-quality early learning for young children. So if the expectations have increased for kindergarten, how has this affected preschools? Preschool children are spending more and more time in what is called seat work and less time playing and building social skills, according to research Chris Takis has conducted in 2016. Until recently, school readiness skills were not the focus of preschool classrooms in the United States. So what is the cost of creating a more academically structured preschool environment? One study that was conducted by Pellis and Pellis in 2006 states that the absence of free play is believed to negatively affect children's development through their social interactions and behavior. Recent studies show an increase in preschool expulsions. Almost 7 out of every 1,000 preschoolers are expelled, which is a rate that is 3 times that of the grades K through 12, according to Gillum in 2005. The purpose of this research study is to determine the relationship between increased academic demands to disruptive behaviors among preschool-aged children. The hypothesis for my research is that preschool children who have more direct instruction or academic demands throughout the school day will display more disruptive behaviors than children who have more child-directed activities, such as play, scheduled into their school day. The significance of this study is that my provided research may assist preschool teachers in their teaching interactions and classroom management to decrease disruptive behaviors. Policymakers may use this research to aid in appropriate preschool curriculum funding, enacting appropriate mandates and requirements of preschool learners, as well as deciding the rating systems for quality preschools that are both state and federally funded. For the participants of this research study, I will employ a simple random sampling of about 80 preschool-aged children in 4 different preschool classrooms in a state-funded school district. I'm using random sampling to give me the opportunity to select the participants at random and to ensure that there is unbiased representation of the population. It is unknown at this time what percentage of boys and girls will be studied, nor the race of any of the participants. Access and permissions will be applied as outlined by the IRB. Permissions will be obtained from the preschool teachers as well as the site principals. All children that are enrolled in the preschool classrooms will have a formal consent given to parents for permission to include his or her child in the research study. Finally, I will submit a plan to obtain approval from my campus institutional review board. All data gathered from this research will be kept confidential. Here are some of the specific forms of data in the research. This is an experimental study, so there are independent and dependent variables. The independent variable in my research study is the increase in academic demands. The dependent variable we will be studying is disruptive behavior. The operational definitions of academic demands include direct teacher instruction, seat work with the use of worksheets, and testing and/or assessments. The operational definition of disruptive behavior include aggression, inattentiveness, tantrums, and personal social conflict. The instrument that will be used for this research is a behavioral checklist. The students' behaviors will be observed by researchers using the Child Behavior Checklist for ages 1.5 to 5, the Caregiver Teacher Report Form. This instrument will measure children's emotional reactivity, attention problems, aggressive behaviors, somatic complaints such as stomach aches, withdrawal, and anxious or depressed behaviors. The CBCL 1.5 to 5 is a reliable and valid tool in measuring problem behaviors. To ensure reliability, researchers will duly observe for inter-rater reliability. To analyze and interpret the data, the researchers will compare the mean measurement on the CBCL 1.5 to 5 across the daily routine of direct teacher instruction and free play. The baseline scores of students during non-academic teacher instruction will be used to compare to the scores during teacher-directed instruction using the paired t-test. So basically, we're going to be comparing the before and the after of the behavior. The output will give us useful descriptive statistics in comparing the two sets of data that will enable researchers to identify any correlations that may exist between disruptive behavior and direct instruction in preschool-age children. The results of this study will add to the current research that's already available on the increase in suspension and expulsions among preschoolers due to disruptive behaviors. It will also add to the current research in appropriate developmental practices among preschool-age children. And finally, the results of this study will enable policymakers, principals, administrators, and teachers to use valid and reliable research to drive classroom management and developmentally appropriate practices that children can be successful in complying with. If permission to conduct this research was approved, and the appropriate amount of time was given to carry out the research, I would expect to have gathered data on not only the relationship between academic demands and disruptive behavior among preschoolers, but also data on other variables that might be at play or the difference in data between boys and girls. Some expected challenges of this research include the buy-in of stakeholders and being able to adequately sort out other variables at play in disruptive behaviors. Sometimes children are just having an off day, so it can be hard to figure out which variables apply and do not apply at times during research such as this. Some expected success include increased awareness of the rise in academic demands on preschool-age children and the implications of these demands, reducing the amount of expulsions and suspension in preschool, especially if we know what is developmentally appropriate and know how to put less demands on young children. Guiding parents and preschool teachers, this could be successful in helping them figure out what's appropriate. And it can also help policyholders in the knowledge of developmentally appropriate practices in early learning and why it matters. Here are the references that were mentioned during my presentation. Thank you for listening.